Hello, everyone. I want to welcome you all to the third week of Ask an Advocate for Sexual Assault Awareness Month. So today we have some wonderful guests from Reach Counseling, and we're just going to talk about all things advocacy today. So I'd like to start by having you all, our panelists, introduce yourselves, your pronouns, how long you've been with Reach, and maybe a little bit about your educational background.
Sure. Awesome. I can go first and then I'll hand it over to Haya. So my name is Noelle. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And I have been serving here at Reach since July of 2020 as the Youth and Teen Advocate and Volunteer Coordinator here. And I'm actually a UW Oshkosh alum. I studied psychology was my major, and I had a minor in women and gender studies. That's a little bit about my background.
Okay, I can go next. So my name is Haya Khatib. I am the anti-human trafficking and exploitation advocate at Reach Counseling. I use she, her pronouns as well. I've been at Reach for almost a year now, but I have been doing this work for almost 6 years. I didn't do the best, I guess, traditional route for education. I did go into international public affairs first, and then I went back and got a degree in sociology, and I'm actually now a student at UW Oshkosh getting a degree in criminal justice. And I'm really glad to be here, so thank you for hosting this.
Thank you so much. Is Mary Carmen with us today?
I am, but I don't know what I did, but I don't see myself in there, but I am here.
Did you want to go next, Mary Carmen?
Yes. What would you want me to say?
If you just want to give an introduction, your name, pronouns, your position, and a little bit about your educational background.
Oh, sure. Well, my name is Mary Carmen, and I've been in this area for 20 some years now. I've been working at Reach Counseling as a Latina advocate for a little over 7 years. And before, I've been always working with the Latino community. That's for a long time now. And I'm so happy and thrilled to be part of this organization because I believe that we really do focus on our clients, and that's the main thing. I did study business administration, but I didn't go for that route, so I ended up doing this, which I love, and I'm very passionate about it.
Thank you so much. Sierra, we can see you. Yay! I think you need to unmute yourself so we can hear you.
Okay, yeah, technology was saying a bunch of stuff and I finally was able to fix it. So I actually had to join from someone else's link because my link was not working. So yeah, I'm just happy to be here. Would you like me to introduce myself?
That would be wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. I'm here.
Yay, we're all here. So hi, everyone. My name is Sierra Hill, and I'm the Advocacy Director at Reach Counseling Services. I've been at Reach since 2018. Yeah, since 2018. My first position at Reach was the campus advocate. And so I did that for about going on probably 2 years out of the years that I was there, just about. And then I transitioned into the youth and teen advocate and educator. And then now I am the advocacy director since 2020. And so I actually transferred to UW Oshkosh in 2013. I got an associate's degree at Madison College, graduated there in 2013. And then I double majored in psychology and criminal justice at UWO and graduated in 2016. And my pronouns is she, her, hers. And what other question? Was that it? I think I touched on all of them.
I think that's wonderful. Thank you.
Yes.
So since we have such a diverse group as far as like what your positions are, that you all do different things, I'm wondering if we can go around, if you wouldn't mind, and just kind of talk a little bit more specifically about what your advocacy duties are.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start off. So as the advocacy director, my main role is to be a leader of the advocacy team, supervision, and then just be a support system for my advocates. A lot of what I do is making sure that the advocates are feeling supported and comfortable and safe at REACH, as well as I do a lot of grant writing and reporting, a lot of the not so fun things, collecting data, a lot of meetings with donors and board and other leaders at REACH. I do victim advocacy as well. So that includes, legal, medical, personal advocacy, all of the things that the other advocates do as well. And then also I oversee the volunteer coordinator position, and then also I oversee the support groups at REACH. And so we have 7 support groups at REACH. And they range from lots of different support. So we have a Latina support group, which Mary Carmen, I'm sure, will touch on. We have our Native American Talking Circle that Lisa, our Native American advocate, would run. And we have our LGBTQ plus support group. We have our teen support group. We have our anti-trafficking support group, which I'm sure Haya would touch on. And then we also have our Women of Color support group that I actually facilitate myself. And then we have 2 women support groups, one in Oshkosh and one in Nina. And I run the one in Oshkosh, and then we have one in Nina as well. And so those are our support groups. And so I help facilitate that and everything. There's so much more I'm sure I'm missing. I can't think of the top of my head, but a lot of what I do is just to be, a support system and help the advocates and their programs grow, making sure that, if I see opportunities in the community for collaboration or opportunities in the community for more funding or whatever it is, my job is to make sure that the advocates have what they need.
Okay. That's wonderful. That's a lot. That's a lot of responsibilities. Thank you for sharing.
Yes.
Who would like to go next?
I would like to go next. I think I was listening to Sierra, what she was saying, and we really do complement each other at REACH. It's like we do certain things and the others do other things, so it's like a whole, and we can do serve better that way. For example, like I do mostly work with Latinos because of the language barrier, and I go with them since, okay, they come to me. I'm gonna just give you an example. And if they decide to report, we accompany them to do the police report. So we are there for them to support and also to do the translation or the interpretation if they need to. We also go to the same calls, which Noel is gonna talk more about that. I usually don't do the translation at those calls because it's someone else who does it, but we accompany them too. We go to the hospital, we look for resources for them, every single thing that they need, like housing, food, gas, everything that they need. We just try to cover their basic needs so they are okay for the moment, right? And that we connect them with other agencies too. We do personal advocacy. We also run support groups in Spanish. I do run a couple, and Haya has one, Noel has one, Sarah has one, Tracy has another one, which Tracy is a resource advocate, can I say? Right?
Case manager.
Specialist.
Case manager. Mm-hmm.
Case manager. Sorry about that.
Okay.
We do many other things too. Is there maybe something that someone needs to know? Please send me a text or something. But we go everywhere. To the courthouse with them also. We explain the criminal system. We do applications for, we also do restraining orders. We do applications for victims of crime. We connect them with the therapist. We also have a program that is for free, and this is for children up like 4 years old up to 12 years old, and this is for receiving therapy services for free during this time if they're victims of crime. And we support the families also. Please let me know if I'm missing something, Sierra, Noel, and Haya. But that's mostly what we do. And we do support each other very well. I'm very proud of my team too.
That is awesome. And please, anybody here that would like to ask a question, go ahead and raise your hand or put it in the chat, and we can definitely get those questions answered for you all. All right. So Noel or Haya, did either of you want to go next?
Oh, you're on mute, Haya.
Yeah, I can go really quick. I know that Sierra and Mary Carmen touched on a lot of what the general advocacy at our agency entails. With my position, I do have some different duties just because of the intricacy of it and how there's a lot of intersectionality between human trafficking or exploitation and then sexual assault and domestic violence or other general crimes. So a lot of my focus is providing counseling and one-on-one crisis intervention. I also do respond to law enforcement calls, whether at the department or in the field. I do go out to the hospitals as well. So whether it's for a SAAM or for a human trafficking call, I will respond to those as well. I collaborate quite a bit with the FBI, local PD, other agencies, and other human trafficking advocates throughout the state to provide the most victim-centered and trauma-informed services for our clients. We always ensure that we stay within the scope of our practice and that we don't do something we're not supposed to. So with that, a lot of my work does touch base with the criminal justice system because of when we get the cases. So I do a lot of, working with the clients as far as explaining how the criminal justice works, what every hearing entails. So explaining the difference between like a pretrial and a preliminary hearing or like a jury trial, whatever the case may be. And, we get them connected with either the public defender's office, the district attorney's office, victim witness, the investigators themselves. And we do provide that comfort and that we're almost like a buffer for them, especially for the emotional support. We understand that not everybody's a fan of, the criminal justice system and whatnot, but it is a crucial part, with the work that I do. So I do try and almost, like the middleman for a lot of that work. We do a lot of referrals, and so we try and keep everything in state unless we really have to, take drastic measures and look at out-of-state resources. But Wisconsin does have quite a bit of resources. So we help with the housing as well. We help with transportation. Safety planning is a big thing that we do while somebody is in the relationship and after they get out. So we do keep those in mind. we work with the family members as well. We do a lot of mediation between the clients and their family members to help them understand what happens after somebody is out of the human trafficking life. So we do a lot of that as well. I still have some sexual assault clients as well. And as far as the service, we serve anybody really from the age of 6 and higher. And I've had some clients that are younger, so we definitely will provide the most accurate services that there are. And yep, just like everybody else said, if you have any questions, please feel free to let us know, and we're happy to get those answered.
Thank you. That is so great that that your agency has added that aspect of human trafficking to the whole picture, because you're right, they can definitely interplay. So thank you for that. And Noelle?
Yeah, I'll go. So as the youth and teen advocate, specifically, other than the general stuff that's been touched on, it's a lot of building relationships with schools. So I work really closely with our prevention education program as well. They go into schools and give presentations on consent and healthy boundaries and how to disclose sexual abuse or even identify it as sexual abuse, especially for our younger kids that we present to. And so I work closely with them to, one, so kids can see my face and know they're not just coming to a stranger when they need to see an advocate, and two, to build relationships with counselors. So when they do encounter disclosure, they know someone to call and to lean on when dealing with disclosures. Along those same lines, in addition to obviously helping youth and teens, a lot of it is parent work. So the younger the child, the more likely they're going to cling to their mom or their dad or whoever their chosen trusted adult is. And they don't want my support, they want their support. So at that point, my job is to really boost them up and provide as much support to the parent as I can so that they can in turn feel, able to support their child going through a trauma that they might not understand or have ever experienced themselves. So that's another big part of that job, but I do take adult clients as well. So it's been a real mix. And then as volunteer coordinator, I get to run our volunteer advocacy program. So other than the 3 other advocates in this room, we have a volunteer team of volunteer advocates that are also a part of our team. And they help us with our 24-hour crisis line, which is there for clients in crisis or for anyone who's not even a client, but in a crisis due to, sexual violence. And additionally, responding to SAAM exams like Mary Carmen brought up. So 24 hours a day, if a survivor goes into the hospital, they will get an advocate to show up and be there for them, support them, provide resources, as well as help the SAAM nurse, because there's often, or quite often, I would say, a lot of tension. They can often be in crisis. Their family and friends could be there as well and also in crisis. So having an advocate there really makes the process a lot less traumatizing and tries to make it as easy as possible. And then one thing I will touch on is that, this has been my role since when I started in July. I've recently begun a transition into the development and marketing manager role here at Reach Counseling. So if anyone's listening in today that's interested in being an advocate, if you listen to this and you're like, oh, this is a cool job, that job posting will be up very shortly. So I'd like to put that out there as well, or in case anyone knows anyone who's interested in being a sexual assault advocate.
Thank you. I think we have some seniors here listening, so they might take you up on that offer. We do have a question in the chat, and someone asked if you could go back and do your schooling again, would you choose the same route, or would a different one have better prepared you for the work that you do now?
I definitely think that I will do something like psychology instead of what I did, because that's I don't know, that will be very useful right now.
I would say, the majors that I chose, even though advocacy wasn't what I envisioned for like my career after college, it kind of really goes together. Like like my psych major, my criminal justice major, and what I do now, a lot of it is interwoven. As Haya mentioned, a vast majority of the work that we do is legal advocacy. And so knowing the ins and out of the criminal justice, system, it really helps be able to prepare you for knowing, what information you need to be giving to your clients. Like I mentioned in the chat, a lot of what we do is give information, whether it's, to the clients' families, the public. A lot of it is giving information. And so I would say, I feel like the path in which I took for schooling somehow in some way got me where I am now. And I don't think I would change anything, to be honest. So yeah, that's my answer.
I think for me, I would have done the criminal justice alongside the sociology and the social work that I did, just because I am in the process of getting my bachelor's right now at UWO in criminal justice, and I love the entire program and every single class and professor. They've been so intricate to where I am right now, and it's almost really funny because I'm almost learning like almost a week before things happen. So I'm prepared, I was like, oh, I know exactly what this is because I just learned about this. So I definitely would have wanted to have done this before, but I wouldn't have changed, even getting my international public affairs, because that got me to where I am today. And you never really know, especially when it comes to human trafficking, like we could, stand the chance of getting international trafficking. And, that could be useful in that sense someday.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And yeah, I wouldn't change a thing. I bounced around a lot at UW Oshkosh. Like my first 3 semesters was 3 different majors. And I found a love in psychology and women and gender studies. And it's kind of, and in those degrees, at least, you can make it what you want it to be. So whenever I had the option to do a project on trauma or sexual assault or rape culture, like the societal stuff and the psychology behind what we work with, I chose that because I knew this was a passion that I wanted to go into. So, there isn't a major in sexual assault. You can't major in it. You can't major in being a sexual assault advocate, but you can find certain degrees where you can find ways to specialize in what you're passionate about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I just want to add, I forgot to mention this earlier. A lot of what the advocacy program also does is community, community outreach. So, SAAM, Sexual Assault Awareness Month, that's going on right now. That is part of our job to, come up with programming and events and activities to, bring awareness to, sexual violence and sexual assault in our communities. And so a lot of what we do is that as well. We actually, put on, Take Back the Night as well with community partners. And so a lot of what we do is bringing awareness to the community, because yes, people know sexual assault happens, but a lot of people don't really believe that it happens so close to home, or they don't believe that, trafficking even happens in this area. So a lot of what Haya does is bring awareness to the community that trafficking isn't in, Asia and New York. It's happening right here, in the Fox Valley area, and it will continue to, happen unless we work to end it, right? So a lot of what we do is bring awareness to the community. Each and every one of us, puts on presentations in the community, whether it's at, Myron Construction or Kimberly Clark or Aurora or the school, Hortonville or the schools, like wherever they are, we're asked to come in and tailor it to, the area in which they're at. So, tailor it to, the population that they're focusing on. So, Mary Carmen will be asked to come in and do, a presentation on how, sexual violence affects the Latina population and community. And, same thing with Haya, she's asked to come in and do, presentations on trafficking and the impact that it has on our community. So, a lot of what we also do is bringing awareness and outreach in the community.
That's wonderful. When a person gets hired on by Reach and they're asked to do those presentations, is there additional training that happens, or are you kind of already expected to know how to do those types of things?
No, I don't think, I guess I can speak to my program, right? The human trafficking side. I don't really, foresee somebody having all this knowledge and all this. This is a field that's ever so growing, and I'm learning still, right? And so I think even just to come in, you can learn the general advocacy, and then we can kind of start focusing on diving really deep into, whether it's sexual assault or human trafficking or whatever the case may be, to help understand. Because you can do the trainings online, you can do the 40 hours that's required and go through all that, but every agency does operate differently based on the needs and the gaps and the barriers in the community. So if it's for me, like, definitely there will be training as far as the basics, and then the advanced portion. So again, it's a field that's forever growing, and so I would never expect somebody to just pop right in and go right out. Definitely would be a lot of trainings, and making sure that there's also that understanding and knowing what you're talking about before you talk about it. So definitely like to focus on that quite a bit.
Yeah, I'll just add, we do have mandate training that, each advocate is required to do once, receiving or accepting the job, position. And so, they're required through our sexual assault coalition to, do sexual assault advocacy school. And that prepares, like, I can't even begin to describe how grateful I was. And like, I was scared when I got the position. I was like, I don't know, but the advocacy, leader, the supervisor, the director, whatever you want to refer to them as. So my position now, my main job is to make sure that I'm also, setting my advocates up for success. So I'm not going to just have them go out there and just, hey, do this, presentation without knowing, what the presentation requires. Can they do it? Are they able? Are they ready? Are they, to do it? And so we do have mandate training like that, and then also continuing education. So, us as advocates, a lot of our schedule is booked up with webinars, trainings, certifications, because we always have to be evolving. Like Haya said, this field is ever growing. Each year there's something new. Each year there's new legislation, there's new laws, whatever it is. And so we have to be informed so that we can be able to help our clients the best way we can. So so a lot of it is, making sure that we take the steps to educate ourselves as we continue on, with advocacy. I think there's a question in the chat too.
Yeah, Alicia asked, what are some of the barriers that you see, especially specific to the populations that you work with, in terms of seeking support services? Great question.
Yes, there are some. And I think I'll begin with 3 that are right here. Cultural barriers, language barriers, and document barriers. It depends if you are documented or undocumented. Undocumented victims of crime, it's a little challenging to find resources for them, but we'll make it happen. We'll find ways to do it. And the other 2, well, I work specifically with my Latino clients because of that reason, because they don't know what's going on and they don't know how to do certain things. So that's why I'm like in the middle to try to help them and do whatever is needed to do. And the language is the language.
Would anyone else like to speak to that?
Oh, go ahead, Haya.
I think one of the other big barriers is the housing. And really to go deeper, it's the safe housing piece. You know, a lot of times victims get out of relationships and the perpetrators were like the household leads, right? Or they were the ones where they were staying with. So, you know, when they get out, you know, we want to make sure that they get to safety. And unfortunately, we do have a lot of the housing barrier and then the financial side of things as well. And so we do work with other agencies in the area and beyond to help ensure that we are bridging those gaps quite a bit.
You know, and I would just add, you know, for Lisa's program, the Native American advocacy program, a lot of the barriers is, you know, cultural barriers, like Mary Carmen said, to seeking services. You know, a lot of there's just a lot of mistrust, which is rightfully so, when it comes to, you know, the Native American population and seeking services outside of tribal lands. And so a lot of what, you know, not Mary Carmen, Lisa, you know, job was or is to make sure that that barrier is broken down just a little bit. So she's like the liaison, the guide to help you know, guide the survivors through, you know, both processes. A lot of it is they're going through the criminal justice system, but they're also going through tribal courts. There's a big difference. There's a lot of, you know, things that are not the same when it comes to our criminal justice system. So she has to know the process. She has to know how to better help and serve that, you know, population. And so, yes, there is lots of barriers, you know, seeking services for survivors, and especially for survivors of color, it's even harder because a lot of the people that when they go to, you know, seek services don't look like them. They don't understand. They don't know the culture, their heritage, their language. And so, you know, the good thing about REACH that I'm really proud of working there is that we do have a lot of individuals that represent that population because they're a part of that population. And so it helps bring, you know, break down a little of those barriers, like Mary Carmen had said, you know, so yes, there's barriers for sure.
Thank you. Great answers. Maybe we can switch gears a little bit and hear maybe some stories about what you guys love about your job and some of the joys that you have experienced while working with REACH. I think anyone can go that would like to go.
All right, can you hear me now? Okay, sorry about that. I think I'll go. It's just family that I've been working with for a couple years now. They were referred to REACH by another client that we had, and this mom of 5 kids, super nice, super hard worker, head of the family. She didn't have any partner at the moment. Her husband or her ex-husband was deported, so she raised the 5 kids by herself. She opened up the door to her home to her sister and the husband. So this guy started molesting the children and abusing the 2 older children that she's got. She has 5 daughters. And well, everything was so hard for her, she didn't know what to do. So she contacted this friend of hers that knew about REACH. So they got a hold of us. We went through the process with them, the reporting, court, hospital. We help with so many other things like housing, just individual advocacy for mom and therapy for all the children that she's got. 4 of them were affected by it. And right now I can tell you that they're like in the almost the end of the therapy session for the children, and mom is doing super good. She did a great job with it, and we were part of that. So that is a great satisfaction as agency that well, I believe we have, because we were able to be there for them.
Yes.
That's wonderful.
You know, I would just say that a lot of the joy that I get from my job is helping is helping others. So, you know, the reason why I picked the majors that I picked is because I wanted to go into some type of career that was going to be impactful and helpful, especially you know, a career in which I could help individuals who's been through a lot of trauma. You know, whatever trauma it is, I wanted to be there and help in whatever capacity that I could. And so my job at Reach gives me that opportunity to do that. You know, I was thankful for the people that I had in my life when I was going through, you know, the things that I was going through and the traumas that I had. And so I wanted to be that person for others that is going through trauma or that went through trauma. And so a lot of the joy that I get is just after each advocacy individual meeting and just seeing, like, they come in and they just look distraught and they're just sad and they're just down. And then when they leave, and if I see their faces and their faces is, you know, they seem a little bit more and they're a little bit more, you know, smiling and laughing, that's enough for me. And so I really enjoy just seeing the impact that the advocates make on their clients. It's just a joy to see, especially when I see, you know, children that are going through the things that, you know, that they're going through, and that they get to a point where now they're having, you know, they're seeking therapy. Now they're part of, you know, certain community support groups or whatever it is, and knowing that they're going to be better off, that they seek services than not seeking services, which happens to a lot of people. And then we see you know, them being, you know, victims and survivors of similar things later on in life. And so I really love seeing, you know, the impact that Reach is making as a whole on the youth and the kids and teens in our area. So
I think one of the biggest pieces is to see our clients become empowered and to get their voices back, or just get voices in general. You know, we meet clients on some of their worst days that they've ever seen, and they're just so vulnerable and broken down and just so hopeless. And so for me, it's not about how I come out of the meetings, or at the end of the day, it's about how our clients come out of it, you know, how they're learning that they are capable of so much more than they give themselves credit for, and how they're so incredibly resilient and they just may not know it. So, you know, that's the kind of things that I look for with my clients, you know, to make sure that the work that we're doing is affecting them positively in more than one different aspect. You know, to have my client stand up in court and, you know, face her abuser, you know, face their abusers in any way, or for them to be able to be like, okay, I can finally go back to the city, or I can finally do this again because, you know, you gave me my voice. So, you know, those are the little things that we look for before anything else, really.
Yeah, I 100% second what everyone has said. And one thing I think is really unique in my role is when I hop from helping out a 6-year-old and their parent to a teen with an even older parent, I see a lot of different generations really rapidly. And so I can really see generational change happen. So, you know, one of the first things we're taught as a advocate is to always affirm survivors, that it's not their fault. to not blame themselves. And that's like the first thing we tackle. And I've noticed with some of my teens that they're just like, well, yeah, of course. Like, I know. And I'm like, oh, okay, like that's awesome though. And that means that, the fight against rape culture is working. Every time though, I'm just like, oh, okay, good. That's awesome. Okay, let's move on. And on the flip side, when I'm with, younger children and parents will say, too often they'll say, this happened to me and to me too, when I was their age. And then they both end up in therapy. And so to see them fixing the generational trauma and stopping it in its tracks is really inspiring. And really brings me a lot of joy to see them not only advocate for their child, but for themselves, is really rewarding. So it's really interesting to see how all the different generations are responding to sexual violence, whether the new ones or, older folks who are focusing on their own trauma to make sure that, this generational stuff stops in its tracks.
Great answers. That's so wonderful that all the differences that you guys are making in people's lives. I'm wondering if you guys could maybe talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you face being an advocate.
I can go first really quick.
Oh, okay, never mind. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll make it super quick. I think one of the big ones that we've been, dealing with, and not even bringing COVID in, is the criminal justice system and how everything takes forever. It just, people are really maybe sometimes have that perception that because of a lot of TV that, oh, okay, so I reported and now next week I'm going to be, at the police department, then I'm going to be in court and the case is going to be closed. And in reality, we're looking at anywhere from 9 months to 3, 4, 5 years for anything to happen. And so, it's really, we really have to be very cautious with the language that we're using and letting people know that, one, as advocates, we're not making any promises. Like, we can't make promises ever as an advocate, but, we can walk you through this process and focus on the healing side of things while we're letting the criminal justice do its job, right? The crime lab is just so backed up. The courts are backed up, they're just starting to prosecute charges from like 2017. And so, it does take a long time. And so we really have to make sure that we are supporting our clients the best way that we can while we let the criminal justice system run its course.
We have another question in the chat. Does drug use / abuse play a role with your clients and or their abusers?
I would say, I'll start off the bat, and when I would say I would talk more about alcohol, because a lot of the work that I was doing, especially with college age individuals, a lot of the cases, more often than not, there was some type of alcohol being used by the perpetrator, by the survivor, and sometimes drug use as well. And voluntary and involuntary, meaning they were drugged by their perpetrator. And so, yes, I would say it's not uncommon to see drug and alcohols being used to either make someone, make someone do something that they don't want to do, or take away their consent completely. And so, yes, I would say, we do see that, I would say on average for the individuals that I saw, mainly from like 20 to like 26, 27-ish, that age range, more often than not, there was alcohol or some type of drug used.
I'd say, no joke, I think every single one of my victims has had some sort of interaction with drug use or abuse. And a lot of it is either a result of being with their traffickers, or it was basically like the push, right, that drove them into that. And so one of the big things is that we don't shame or guilt trip or let them be embarrassed, tell them that they need to be embarrassed anyway. We actually focus a lot on the harm reduction piece and offering treatment and treatment centers for them, because we know a lot of times, either if it's by choice or by not, that we want to make sure that we're still their safe space and their comfort zone for them.
Absolutely. And I'll just add to, kind of going along with that question, as well as, what challenges or barriers there are being an advocate, is when there's any kind of intersecting identity or situation, it just makes the healing process that much harder. It makes interacting with the criminal justice process that much harder. Being an addict and a survivor, or struggling with mental illness and a survivor, or incarcerated and a survivor, it makes everything harder on them. And so it's our job to try and be that buffer as best we can. But sometimes there's not much you can do. And there's just going to be those extra challenges because of those, intersecting identities or situations. And that can be a very frustrating part of the job, for sure.
Yes, I would agree with everybody, especially with Noel, that you were just saying all those barriers that they find, and is they're in such pain and under so much trauma that sometimes they use just to numb that pain. And it's hard for us to watch that, but it's also rewarding that with the time you notice that they start to do less consumption because of they're in therapy and things like that, until finally they make it through. We have had some cases like that.
I would imagine that vicarious trauma might be an issue in your field. How do you guys deal with that?
Absolutely, I can start. So I used to have like a very rigorous self-care plan, like pre-advocacy. I had the things that worked, and for me, which was yoga at the time, and meditation and mindfulness. But I will say that as you get through, months of advocacy work, your needs may change. So sitting still and breathing and meditating is not working on a bad day anymore. Now it's going for a run. Now it's, reading a good book, or doing some creative writing or journaling, or going to therapy. Therapy is so important. When you are a healing mechanism for other people, you also need someone to lean on and support. So I don't want anyone going into the helping profession think that there's any shame in that. Of course, if you're in that field, but sometimes there's still that little bit of shame that, oh, well, I help people. Why would I need help? And so I would definitely plug therapy is so important, to have a good working relationship with a therapist, so that when you start to feel those symptoms of burnout, you already have the rapport and you can get down to the nitty gritty and keep at least one eye on your own mental health while you're helping others on their own healing journey.
I would just, second everything that, Noel said, especially if you go into a helping field in which you yourself is a survivor, whether it be, child abuse, whether it be sexual abuse, whether it be, coming from a home where there was, domestic violence, or, whatever it may be. It's very important to take care of yourself, because we know as advocates that if we're not good, we can't be good for our clients. And that's just the reality. So like, Noel was saying, things that I did for self-care prior to being an advocate, sometimes it just doesn't work, and so now I'm, instead of, doing, mindfulness stuff. Now I'm doing boxing and some mindfulness stuff, because there is some cases where you just get angry. There's some cases where you're just like, I don't understand why it is time and time again that, my clients aren't getting the justice that they deserve when it comes to the criminal justice, system, or time and time again, you see, children, still in homes where unfortunately they're not being supported, and they're continuing to be, victims, of whatever it is that's going on in the home. And so, yes, it can be very tiresome. And there are moments where you may feel like you go home and you just cry, or you just yell and you're just angry, like at the perpetrator, at the systems. So yeah, you have to, yep, exactly, put yourself first, and make sure that you're the best that you can for your clients, because otherwise you can't be.
All good stuff. So have lots of tools in your belt when it comes to self-care. Maybe we can end by talking a little bit about those of us who are not in a formal advocate role. How can we be support of victim survivors?
I love when that question is asked, Beth. Because before I got into this field, I wish I would have known what to do. I think one of the biggest things is to believe, right? I think the biggest thing is to absolutely believe when somebody tells you that something happened to them. It's not up to us to dictate whether or not something happened to us. It's not up to us to dictate how somebody should feel or what they think or anything. I think the biggest way to support is to, be that leaning shoulder for them, give them that listening ear, and, just support them in every single way that you can, whether it's maybe finding resources for them, or, taking them places, doing a lot of active listening, letting them tell you their story, and making sure that we're not making people feel guilty or ashamed or embarrassed, because those are very big barriers of why victims don't come forward, because there's that stigma that, I did this to myself, or I put myself in that position, or whatever the case may be. So it's really important that we go into this conversation very open-minded, and that we're patient, and that we're kind, and that we're remembering that the person across from us is, somebody we love and care about, and they went through something traumatic. And so the best we could do is just to, provide all of that, of what I just said.
Yeah. I would just, I'm sorry.
No, I would just agree with what Haya said.
Mm-hmm.
And that is very important, that we don't judge. We don't need to judge anybody. We need to have a lot of compassion and mind openness to be aware what they're going through, and we have to respect whatever, or it's the reason what happened. We are not there to judge anybody. And another way also to support, if you haven't been on something through this, but you want to help reach, maybe it's volunteering.
Yeah, exactly. And, I would just also add, and I said in the chat, do more listening than talking. When someone discloses to you, it's not your opportunity to talk about what happened to you when you were, whatever age. That is their time, and for you to listen, not try and change the conversation to put on you. They're coming to you because they want to open up, and they want to share what they have to share. So let them share, and everything like that. And if they say, have you been through something like this before, and they feel like it would be beneficial for them to hear something like that, then go ahead. But don't just sit there and turn the conversation and talk about yourself and what you've been through, because that is a time for them to get the support that they need, during that moment. And so I would just, be mindful of that. And then also there's so many ways in which people can, be, helpful or, be supportive when someone discloses. And there's multiple, articles and resources to help with that, because there's differences in, listening to someone, disclose that are, a child versus an adult. There's definitely some differences there. So you just want to make sure that, what you're learning is catered to the, to the people that which you wish to, support. And so knowing how to be a support system for a child, that's something that you're, interested in learning, then that's a resource for you, and everything. But yeah, I would just say, do more listening than talking.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much, y'all, for being here. It was great talking to you, and I just appreciate all the work that you do. Maybe someone could put your website in the chat, and then if anybody else needs to reach out or wants to reach out or has questions, they can get a hold of you that way. Thank you, Noelle. And then also just a plug for the evaluation for our listeners. If you would complete that, we would be forever grateful. So again, thank you so much. And we have one more Ask an Advocate next week if you all want to tune in. And thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Beth.
Thank you for having us. Bye.